All right, we're now going to talk about Clio. Clio is our case management software that acts as our calendar, our to-do list, which we call a task list, our matters, which is the word we use for all individual cases. It also keeps track of all of our contacts and has lots of other good information. When you open Clio and log in, the first screen that's going to pop up is your dashboard, and the dashboard also can be accessed by clicking on this tab on the left. The dashboard has some quick glance information, but it's otherwise not very useful. So just at a glance, you can see your tasks that are due today. You can see your calendar events for today. And at the bottom, there's a whole bunch of information for billable hours, which we don't typically do at our firm, so it's not something you're going to be using most likely. If you jump to the next tab on the left, it is the calendar tab. And of course, this is something that everyone is going to use on a day-to-day basis. So when I click on the calendar tab, I can see my calendar as well as several other calendars. The best function about the calendar tab is that it's very customizable, and that's a very simple thing to do. And so your your calendar may look a little bit different from mine. So the first thing you can do is you can choose if you want it to show just a day or a whole week or a whole month. But typically that gets really cluttered very fast, and then it becomes kind of hard to use. And so I think most people keep it just on today's date. And if you do need to jump ahead, you can just easily click the next button, or you can even jump ahead over here using this calendar on the right by just clicking on the day you want to look at. The next thing you can customize is which calendars show up. So you can see that I have my calendar first, and then we have a statute of limitations calendar. We have some conference room calendars, and then I have calendars for both of the staff members that work for me. Over here on the right, you have the list of all calendars that are available for you to see, which should be everything. And so if I wanted to not see the conference room anymore, I could just unclick the box and it disappears. But if I wanted to see both the conference rooms on my calendar, then I could click on both of them and they would both show up. So it's very quick and simple to make a calendar show up or disappear if you're trying to keep your calendar less cluttered. Typically, I would keep Justin's calendar up because I call him all the time and I like to be able to see what he's doing so I can quickly, know if I'm going to get an answer or not. But basically, you're going to have whichever calendars you think that you need to have to make your day the most efficient. So if there is somebody's calendar that you're constantly looking at for scheduling appointments or for checking in with that person, probably a good idea to have their calendar up. Now, everyone is required to have the statute of limitations calendar. That calendar is going to show whenever there is a statute of limitations for one of our cases, for any attorney, any practice area. There aren't any here, but let me scroll ahead and see if I can find one. There's a couple. So you can see that it creates a banner at the top of the statute of limitations calendar with the case name, the matter, and it's already crossed out. And that's good. That's what we want. Anytime you see one of these pink banners at the top, and actually I said pink, but that's because that's what I've customized it at. You'll be able to pick and choose your own colors. But anytime you see a name pop up there, it should be crossed out. And that means that the case has already been settled, or the lawsuit's been filed, or the claim has been made, whatever happens in that practice area, to satisfy that deadline to preserve our client's case and to not have any issues there. So the real problem would come if you ever saw one of those that was not crossed out. And we're talking about within, a couple days or the coming up week. If that happens, then you need to stop what you're doing immediately and call the attorney on that case and let them know, hey, I just saw a statute of limitations coming up in the next couple of days. It hasn't been satisfied yet. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. And then they'll take it from there. If you can't reach the attorney, call that attorney's immediate staff, either the paralegal or the legal secretary. Maybe send an email as well so that nothing gets lost, in cyberspace. We just want to always make sure that we have all hands on deck. Most likely, if you're seeing something in the next couple days, it's just a mistake and we have already handled it. We just forgot to mark the box. But if not, you could very well be saving the client's case and saving everyone from a lot of headache after that. So always, take the initiative and reach out and let somebody know if you see one coming up that hasn't been marked out yet. All right. So the next thing about the calendar that is important to know is how to schedule an appointment. And so if you are looking to schedule an appointment, you can do so by either clicking new event or you can double click on the open space on the calendar that you're trying to schedule. So if you're trying to schedule it for yourself or for somebody else, you would go to that date and you would look at the available times and then you could just double click where you want to schedule that appointment. And then the screen is going to pop up and allow you to fill in all the information. So if I were going to schedule a meeting with a client, then I would give it a title that helps me remember what it's all about later. I would make sure the date and the time match up with what I want. So maybe it's going to be an hour appointment. So I would make it 8 to 9, we'll say. And then there's a box for location. Now, this location box is really just kind of a more information type box. So you could say something like phone call, or you could say if I was meeting somebody, at a restaurant, or if I was going to be going to someone's house, something like that. You could type that information in there. But if it's going to be in a conference room, and the client is actually going to be coming into our office, then you're not going to do it by just typing in the location. That's why I said this is just kind of an easy note, but it's not going to actually schedule it in the conference room by typing it there. If it's going to be a Zoom meeting, you can choose to select this little button right here, and that's going to put a button on the calendar that's going to create automatically a Zoom meeting. And then just with one click, you can get into that at the next time. But if you click this, then it's only probably going to have a 40-minute limit because that's a free license, and then it'll kick you out. So if it's an appointment that you're trying to make that's definitely going to last longer than 40 minutes, you're going to want to have one of our staff members with access to the professional Zoom licenses make the Zoom appointment for you. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But that is what you would do if you were trying to make a 40-minute or less Zoom meeting. You also need to select the matter. And so for the matter, we're talking about the case, whichever case it is, if it is associated with the case. So you could just start typing the name of the case. So if it was somebody named Smith, I would type Smith. All the Smiths would pop up, and I would find whichever one is the case I'm talking about. And I would just select it, and then it's going to link it to that case. Then it's going to ask whose calendar I'm saving this to. So it should default to whichever calendar you clicked on. If not, it'll probably default to your calendar. But if it is for somebody else, just find their name and go ahead and select it. Now, if you do need to schedule an appointment in a conference room, instead of selecting the person that's going to be in the conference room, you need to schedule it to the conference room calendar. So right now, by doing this, it's going to make the appointment show up in the conference room calendar and ensure that we haven't double booked the conference room. Then you want to make sure that it's on my calendar too, so that my calendar doesn't get double booked. So you would add me as an attendee, and it will also put the appointment on my calendar. So it'll show up in two places. So you can always schedule it in a conference room and add people as attendees, but you can't do it the opposite way. So you can't schedule it for me and then add the conference room as an attendee. That doesn't work. So always schedule it in the physical location if possible. There is a description box that you can put more information in. More information, the better. So if you're scheduling an appointment for me to meet with a client, probably a good idea to try to give me as much information about why I'm meeting with them as possible so that I can prepare. Or if it's, sometimes I'll put information in there about, if it's a hearing or a code that I need to get into, a telephonic conference or an e-learning activity or something like that, I'll just put that information in there. And that way I'm not hunting for it later when it's time for that calendar entry. Any information I need will be right there. Sometimes we even put addresses and directions and, more information about, you need to park on this street in this parking garage for this appointment, that kind of thing. So anything that you can think of that the person may need to know or reference later can go in that description box. All right. When you hit save event, that's going to put it on the calendar. We're not going to save that one. All right. So the next thing to think about with the calendar is making sure that your calendars show up, your calendar entries show up for the correct length of time. So we did schedule it when we created it for something like 9:30 to 10:30, and that's going to make it show up here as a double block of time. As long as it is on the correct calendar and it's scheduled for the correct time, then it's going to show up the correct size. You can see that, let me find someone else who may have a longer appointment. You can see that if you need to block out several hours, you do it the same way. So for this, Hanada has blocked out 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and it's made this very long block of time. So it's really easy to see that she's not available. Some people, however, also have these banners at the top of their calendar for the day. And so, for example, you can see on this one, Justin's banner says that he's out, and that goes for all day. So he doesn't need to block out the entire calendar vertically because he has a horizontal banner that says that he's out. And the way to do that is by scheduling an appointment and clicking the all day button instead of putting a start and end time. So when you click the all day button, it just takes away the time. Whatever I put here, it would go ahead and it would show up as a banner on my calendar for the day. We use those typically if we're out of the office or sometimes just to kind of keep track of where somebody is. So you can see that here Hanada has that she's in the Sharonville office today. So it's not really an appointment. It's not something that needs to affect her calendar, but it does give quick information for anybody who's wondering which physical office she's in that day. You can see that Mackenzie has it labeled that this is a day that she's working from home. So just information that could be helpful for anybody who's looking for you or needs to get a hold of you or helps people schedule appointments for you. That is a good idea to use the banners that way. So again, just a quick recap, you can schedule appointments for any length of time. You can schedule all day events that will show up as a banner. You can customize your calendar, day, week, work week, and month. And of course, you can select who you want to show up very quickly and easily by selecting and unselecting a checkbox by their name. That's how we use Clio Calendar. So next, we're going to talk about a task list.